30 top short stories from Reddit. That's 30. According to Reddit. Annoying neighbor. I used to live in a small building downtown. One of the reasons I moved out was the bad neighborhood, including this guy in the apartment right over mine. He was a weird-looking fella who mostly kept to himself. Around midnight, though, there was frequently a strange noise that got on my nerves. It wasn't loud, to be fair, but I have really light sleep, so it was hard to get my eyes shut with those little bumping sounds going on and on. It reminded me of high heels walking about, but not as loud, as if the person causing the noise was actually trying to be silent. After a few days, I realized the pattern was always the same, like a recording playing over and over, with random intervals in between. And that went on for the best part of a year. Always the same sequence of bumps, slowly tattooed into my mind, sometimes for hours straight, during the night. It was only several years later, helping my daughter with her homework, that I learned a little bit of Morse code. She knocked on the table with her knuckles, and a shiver immediately went through my spine as I recognized that exact pattern. When I asked her what it meant, she laughed. "It's the easiest one, Daddy. It's the one to call for help." Number 29. I hate it when my brother Charlie has to go away. My parents constantly try to explain to me how sick he is, but I am lucky for having a brain where all the chemicals flow properly to their destinations like undammed rivers. When I complain about how bored I am without a little brother to play with, they try to make me feel bad by pointing out that his boredom likely far surpasses mine, considering his confine to a dark room in an institution. I always beg them to give him one last chance. Of course, they did it first. Charlie's been back home several times, each shorter in duration than the last. Every time, without fail, it starts all over again. The neighborhood cat, with gouged out eyes showing up in his toy chest, my dad's razors found dropped on the baby slide in the park, Mom's vitamins replaced by bits of dishwasher tablets. My parents are hesitant now, using last chances sparingly. They said his disorder makes him charming, makes it easy for him to fake normalcy, and to trick the doctors who care for him into thinking that he is ready for rehabilitation. That I'll just have to put up with my boredom if it means staying safe from him. I hate it when Charlie has to go away. It makes me have to pretend to be good until he's back. I begged you. Please, I'm literally begging you, I say, but the executioner only sighs and gives me a truly sorrowful look as he slides the IV into my arm. The chaplain sits beside me. Once he pushes the button, the drugs will be administered in quick succession. Unconsciousness will occur in roughly 30 seconds and death soon after that, he explains. Even though I have heard it so many times before already. Any final words? Just again, I beg you, not to do this, I say. The chaplain nods sadly, sorrowful that I do not face my executioner with a clean conscience. That's the thing, though. I haven't murdered anyone. It's been this way my entire life. I don't know why, but whenever I would accidentally hurt myself, others near me would receive the wound. I once got a paper cut in class that caused the 3 people around me to bleed from their fingers. In high school, I was in a car accident, and even though my side of the car was hit, my girlfriend developed a broken leg. I'm always very careful. I take care of myself, trying to stay in the very best of health, but when I was mugged by that trio and they shot me in the face, their faces exploded, not mine. And when the cops came, they found me kneeling beside their bodies, trying to figure out what to do, and stupidly holding their gun. 30 seconds after the execution started, I see both the executioner and the chaplain fall to the floor with a hard thump. I begged you, I repeat sadly. Julia was a clever girl. Julia knew she was smart. She was one of those clever children, the kind of child who figures out early on that parents aren't all powerful and all knowing. The first time she realized this was when she got scared. There had been a noise in her room, coming from under her bed, or from the closet. Julia ran down the hall crying, "Mommy, Daddy, what's wrong?" "I heard a monster," Julia glubbed. She expected them to comfort her, or roll their eyes, or get annoyed. Instead, they jumped up immediately and raced to the bedroom, where they checked under her bed, inspected the closet, and tested the window lock. They poked, prodded, and scoured every inch. Julia caught on quickly. She knew what they were doing. By taking her fear seriously, they were showing their little girl that she was safe and loved. They had probably read about it in some book. But the lesson Julia learned was that she had power. Thereafter, waking her parents became a nightly event. Julia would scream and cry, and they would rush to her bedroom, and Julia would hide her grin behind tears. But not once did they ever complain. One night she could stand it no longer, and she burst out laughing when Daddy fell down while examining the light fixture, as if a monster could fit up there. "What's so funny?" he asked, rubbing his backside. "You," Julia smiled. "You always believe me." Daddy wasn't angry. He just looked at Mommy. "Once," he said quietly. "Just once. We didn't believe your brother." And Julia, an only child, did not sleep well that night. This new old house. We bought an old house, my boyfriend and I. He's in charge of the new construction, converting the kitchen and the master bedroom, for instance, while I'm on wallpaper removal duty. The previous owner papered every wall and ceiling. Removing it is brutal, but oddly satisfying. The best feeling is getting a long peel, similar to the skin when you're peeling from a sunburn. I don't know about you, but I kinda make a game of peeling, on the hunt for the longest piece before it rips. Under a corner section of paper in every room is a person's name and date. Curiosity got the best of me one night, and I googled one of the names and discovered the person was actually a missing person. The missing date matching the date under the wallpaper. The next day I made a list of all the names and dates, and sure enough, each of them was for a missing person, with dates to match. We notified the police, who naturally sent out the crime scene team. I overheard one say, "Yep, it's human." Human? What's human? Ma'am, where is the material you removed from the walls already? This isn't wallpaper you're removing. Jeff went left. If you're reading this note, I'm sorry. I assume you're in the same situation as me. That smug bastard drugged you and dumped you in these catacombs, with only a candle to find your way out. I don't know how many people he's done this to. There have probably been a lot. He wouldn't spend so much time on it otherwise, would he? He told me the catacombs are a maze. He set traps and deadfalls at every turn, but he promised there's one safe way out. If I'm lucky enough to guess the path correctly. I'm not lucky. I'm just an art student, here on holiday. There's no way I'm getting out alive, but I want someone to. I want revenge. I'm sure you do too, so let's help each other. I still have my sketchbook and pencils. Before each turn, I'm going to leave them behind for the next person, writing down which way I went. If I survive to another passageway, I'll come back and leave a page like this one. If I don't, then it's up to the next person to carry on and go in the opposite direction. Eventually, if we keep leaving breadcrumbs, one of us will escape, get to the police, and find that bastard. Do it for those who didn't make it. My name is Jeff. I went left here. Reading the note by candlelight, you feel a glimmer of hope until you realize you're reading from the sketchbook itself. Jeff never returned to tear out the page, and you're the first person here since him. You look to your right, where the dark maze awaits. Guardians. He awoke to the huge insect-like creatures looming over his bed and screamed his lungs out. They hastily left the room, and he stayed up all night, shaking and wondering if it had been a dream. The next morning, there was a tap on the door. Gathering his courage, he opened it to see one of them. gently place a plate filled with fried breakfast on the floor, then retreat to a safe distance. Bewildered, he accepted the gift. The creatures chittered excitedly. This happened every day for weeks. At first, he was worried that they were fattening him up, but after a particularly greasy breakfast left him clutching his chest from heartburn, they were replaced with fresh fruit. As well as cooking, they poured hot, steamy baths for him and even tucked him in when he went to bed. It was bizarre. One night he awoke to gunshots and screaming. He raced downstairs to find a decapitated burglar being devoured by the insects. He was sickened, but disposed of the remains as best he could. He knew they had just been protecting him. One morning the creatures wouldn't let him leave his room. He lay down, confused but trusting, as they ushered him back into bed. Whatever their motives, they weren't going to hurt him. Hours later, a burning pain spread throughout his body. It felt like his stomach was filled with razor wire. The insects chittered as he spasmed and moaned. It was only then, when, he felt a terrible, squirming feeling beneath his skin, that he realized the insects hadn't been protecting him. They had been protecting their young. Seeing red. Everyone loves the first day of school, right? New year, new classes, new friends. It's a day full of potential and hope before all the dreary depressions of reality show up to ruin all the fun. I like the first day of school for a different reason, though. You see, I have a sort of power. When I look at people, I can sense a sort of aura around them, a colored outline based on how long that person has to live. Most everyone I meet around my age is surrounded by a solid green hue, which means that they have plenty of time left. A fair amount of them have a yellowish orange tinge, and that means that a car crash or some other tragedy will befall them. Anything that takes people before their time, as they say. The real fun is when the auras venture into the red end of the spectrum. Every now and then I'll see someone who's basically a walking stoplight. Those are the ones who get murdered or kill themselves. It's such a rush to see them and know their time is numbered. With that in mind, I always get to class very early, so I can scout out my classmates' fates. The first kid who walked in was basically radiating red. I chuckled to myself, too damn bad, bro. But as people kept walking in, they all had the same intense glow. I finally caught a glimpse of my rose-tinted reflection in the window, but I was too stunned to move. Our professor stepped in and locked the door. His aura, a sickening shade of green. We can't go back into space until Logan Masterson dies. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Personally, I think that this whole thing will be the end of manned spaceflight. It was already dying, and now this? Talk about a PR nightmare. Plus, morally, the murders were pretty bad too. Unsurprisingly, it began with lust. Masterson was aboard the International Space Station with Mizuki Katayama, a brilliant Japanese mission specialist. He loved her, or more accurately, he wanted her, and she politely turned him down. The same scenario happens on Earth every day. The only thing remarkable about this murder was its location. If you admit to watching the broadcasts, then you know how he killed her and what he did to her afterward. But I'd rather not get into that. After killing Katayama, Masterson alone on the International Space Station with Anton Vitali. Saying the cosmonaut was in the wrong place at the wrong time would be an understatement. Masterson made short work of Vitali as well. But again, I'd rather not go into details. You have to remember that at this point, nobody on Earth was clued in. All we saw was that the cameras on the station had stopped transmitting, and that the personnel weren't responding. It's during this period when Masterson must have fully embraced his psychosis. He blacked out the station's windows, he diligently severed all outside controls, then he waited. The first days and weeks were panicky for NASA, JAXA, and Roscosmos. Eventually, a mission was sent up to investigate the ISS. The next 3 astronauts and cosmonauts in the queue for residence were sent up with tools and supplies. Masterson, of course, knew they were coming. He listened to Earth communications and still had access to external cameras. It was a relatively simple matter to sabotage the airlock and depressurize one of the station's segments. From what little we know, it's assumed that all 3 died instantly. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. It was at this point that the broadcasts began. Attempts to stop his outgoing messages were pathetically ineffective. All Masterson had to do was slap an old-fashioned broadcast antenna on the ISS, and presto, the whole world was his audience. Nobody is supposed to watch, but I'd bet that everybody has at least once. The broadcasts were sickening and fascinating at the same time. A psychotic murderer, completely out of the reach of civilization, with a broadcast antenna. Most were horrified. Countries banned viewing the broadcasts, but some segments of the internet loved it. Everyone pretends they don't watch, but all of Masterson's performances are easily accessible online. Months passed and people began to wonder how he was still alive. Then someone pointed out that Masterson has a water recycler and about 5 corpses worth of meat. Still, he can't last forever, so we're waiting him out. A few politicians and world leaders have threatened to launch missiles at the ISS, but that's just bluster. So just go to sleep. Don't even think about the fact that there's a psychotic killer out there passing overhead every 92 minutes. Hell. There was no pearly gate. The only reason I knew I was in a cave was because I had just passed the entrance. The rock wall rose behind me, with no ceiling in sight. I knew this was it. This was what religion talked about, what man feared. I had entered the gate to hell. I felt the presence of the cave as it was a living, breathing creature. The stench of rotten flesh overwhelmed me. Then there was a voice. It came from inside, from all around. Welcome. Who are you? I asked, trying to keep my composure. You know. I did know. You are the devil, I stuttered, quickly losing my composure. Why me? I have lived as good as I could. The silence took over the space as my words died out. It seemed like an hour went before the response came. What did you expect? The voice was penetrating, but patient. I don't know. I never believed any of this, I uttered. Is that why I'm here? Silence. I continued. They say the greatest trick you ever pulled was convincing the world you didn't exist. No. The greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing the world there is an alternative. There is no God? I shivered. The cave trembled with the words, I am God. I don't have a gay son. A few months ago, my oldest son, Charlie, came out to me as a homosexual. He sat his mother and I down in the living room and confessed everything to us about how he had always felt attraction towards men for his entire life. He even told us that he had a boyfriend who he wanted to introduce us to. Justine and I had always had our suspicions about Charlie, but we were still shocked by our son's revelation. Suffice to say, Charlie is no longer a son of mine. You see, every now and again, teenagers in our town get unnatural urges. We try to correct these impure desires early, teach kids right from wrong. If you didn't nip these thoughts in the bud while they're still young, they'll manifest as behaviors in adolescence. We pull offending children up and tell them again and again, from morning worship to Sunday school. Your ungodly impulses are a choice, we lecture. You choose heaven or you can choose hell. Which will it be? For many youth, the treat of damnation is enough to set them on the right path, but there are those who cling to their perversions, convincing themselves that their lifestyle choice is the correct one. If only we had beat it out of them. Maybe that could have saved Charlie. I'll never understand what compels teens to commit such awful sin. Some say that it's the media corrupting the minds of the youth. Others think that it's the primal evil of humanity inevitably seeping through. All I know for sure is that these teenagers go about defiling the Lord and our town remorselessly. There are probably those out there who would call us intolerant. That's fine by us. We believe that there are some transgressions that simply shouldn't be tolerated under any circumstances. And we will never tolerate abduction, torture, and murder. No, I don't have a gay son. I don't have a gay son. Because those twisted fucking bastards killed him. Can you tell what's wrong with this picture? I framed the photo. It sits in my cubicle, in the same spot it has occupied for the last 2 years. It's a reminder for me to work harder. A reminder of all the pain that was caused by moving too slow. 17 kids went missing that summer, snatched from their bedrooms without a trace of who had done it. This case cut deeper than any I had worked on before. Every day, another parent would come to me and ask, "Why haven't you found my baby yet?" And I would have to say, "I'm trying. I promise." After the 16th disappearance, we got a photo in the mail. There was writing on the back, 2 words. Clocks ticking. If you didn't know any better, you might think the picture was kind of beautiful. It's of an old gravel road that winds delicately up a hill. The picture is taken from the middle of the street, the lens aiming up its path. One side of the road is lined by a patch of bright autumn leaves that look like they've recently fallen. The leaves are matted down slightly, as if by a heavy rain. In the center of the road, there is a small basket. The camera is angled up so you can't see inside of it. On either side of the road, there are gigantic pine trees that cast crisscrossing, haunting showers. Well, our department was able to find this location, but there was no evidence, no basket in the street, nothing in the woods. They dismissed as a false lead. But something about the photo got me. I kept it on my desk for the next year, just trying to figure out what it meant. All I wanted was to tell those parents what happened to their kids. There was just something off about the picture, something that felt really unnatural about it. I thought about it all the time, the basket, the leaves, the pine trees. Then, one day, it clicked. Fallen leaves and pine trees. Pine trees don't have leaves. They have needles. Needles don't turn those colors, and they don't fall off in the fall. The pile of leaves wasn't natural. After a year of staring at that picture, a year of telling the parents that I couldn't find their fucking kids, I finally figured it out. I dug a hole where the leaves were in the photo. There was a basket buried beneath the dirt. It held a child's skull. Dental records matched it to Michael Blasters, one of the children who had gone missing. I ordered an excavation of the area. The other kids were buried nearby. Only one complete skeleton was found. It was a child that disappeared only a few days before we got the photo. Unlike the rest, her body was in a coffin. There was a note pinned to the front of her dress, the same handwriting as the photo. 48 hours of air. You could have saved her. The regrets of a time traveler. I am a time traveler. I was. You see, I was capable of traveling time however I pleased, past or present. I was a scientist with a great mind, I think, being the only person in my time, no pun intended, to discover time travel. I say I think because I don't really remember my past. When I discovered this ability, all I remember was euphoria. My vision sparked colors I'd never seen before. My body dissipated into millions of tiny particles, and suddenly, I'm in another dimension of time. Amazing, right? The thing is, whenever I travel in time, through that tunnel that propels all of the particles and atoms that are a part of me, I lose a portion of my memory. Somewhere in that jumble of hyperspace. My first time travel, I forgot pretty much everything. Ever since then, I've taken caution to how I time travel and how often I do it. I chose to limit my abilities to inhibit the possibility of forgetting something important. I've forgotten a multitude of things, some smaller than others. Around a year ago, I forgot the color of my hair, only to remember immediately upon seeing my reflection in a mirror. But it could get much worse, as I once forgot how to breathe, forcing my own body to jump the engine when I passed out to allow myself to breathe on my own. It was my curiosity that screwed me over. On June 18th, 9214, scientists, with the assistance of advanced supercomputers, developed a prototype, an invention capable of previewing possible occurrences of forthcoming events. The minds of this millennium were able to see the freaking future. The display provided the code and text, made expert computer programmers look like toddlers playing with C++. Nevertheless, it was read, making its predictions. It ran for 3 years, producing accurate images of the future. But in 9217, it ceased to continue. The image of the end date was incoherent, even to the damn supercomputers. Scientists theorized this would be the end of existence, the complete opposite of the Big Bang. Religious wackos mark this as the apocalypse and the end of God himself. I wanted to know better. It provided a date of the year and a hazy image of a dark and decaying Earth, just months before the end date. Being a time traveler, I enjoyed having the information no one else had. It made me feel wonderful. That's why I decided to go there, to find out what the hell happens and go down in the books. And I did. Boy, do I regret it. I was trembling, my bowels loosened, my stomach turned. I was terrified. Not because the tall man with the inhuman grin on his face was walking towards me, not because the deafening screams that were in my ears didn't resemble humans, not because I had just found hell on earth, but because I forgot how to time travel. The accident. It was 1 a.m. and Guy Halverson sat in his dark living room. He hadn't moved for over an hour. The accident earlier that evening kept playing over and over in his mind. The light turned red, but he was in a hurry and accelerated. An orange blur came from his right, and in a split second there was a violent jolt. Then, the bicyclist rolled across his hood and fell out of sight on the pavement. Horns blared angrily, and he panicked, stepping on the gas, screeching away from the chaos into the darkness, shaken and keeping an eye on his rearview mirror until he got home. Why did you run, you idiot? He'd never committed a crime before this and punished himself by imagining years in jail, his career gone, his family gone, his future gone. Why not just go to the police right now? You can afford a lawyer. Then someone tapped on the front door, and his world suddenly crumbled away beneath them. They found me. There was nothing he could do but answer it. Running would only make matters worse. His body trembling, he got up, went to the door, and opened it. A police officer stood under the porch light. "Mr. Halverson?" asked the grim officer. He let out a defeated sigh. "I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid I have some bad news. Your son's bike was struck by a hit-and-run driver this evening. He died at the scene. I'm very sorry for your loss." They got the definition wrong. It has been said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I understand the sentiment behind the saying, but it's wrong. I entered the building on a bet. I was strapped for cash and didn't buy into the old legends of the hotel to begin with, so $50 was more than enough to get me to do it. It was simple. Just reach the top floor, the 45th floor, shine my flashlight from a window, and the hotel was old and broken, including the elevator, so that meant hiking up the stairs. So up the stairs I went. As I reached each platform, I noted the old brass plaques displaying the floor numbers, 15, 16, 17, 18. I felt a little tired as I crept higher, but so far, no ghosts, no cannibals, no demons, piece of cake. I can't tell you how happy I was as I entered the last stretch of numbers. I joyfully counted them aloud at each platform. 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 44. I stopped and looked back down the stairs. I must have miscounted. So I continued up. 44? One more flight. 44. And then down 10 flights. 44. Down 15 flights. 44. And so it's been for as long as I can remember. So really, insanity isn't doing something repeatedly and expecting different results. It's knowing that the results will never, ever change. That each door leads to the same staircase, to the same number. It's realizing that you no longer fall asleep. It's not knowing whether you've been running for days or weeks or years. It's when the sobbing slowly turns into laughter. Hi, Hungry. I'm Dad. Tom sat down on the hard wooden staircase, watching the front door, waiting. He really had to leave, but right as he was about to go, an amazing joke came to him and he couldn't keep it to himself. Since his daughters were due to come meandering through the door at any moment, he decided that postponing for a few moments wouldn't cause any harm. His daughters usually rolled their eyes and let out exacerbated sighs when he delivered his comedy masterpieces, but they still smiled. He never was sure if the smiles were because of his unsurpassed hilarity, or if they were laughing at this lame attempt at humor. Either way, nothing brightened his day more than seeing his girls with smiles adorning their beautiful faces. That's why he was delaying his departure. He had the dad joke to end all dad jokes, and he hoped it would eventually bring a smile to their faces. The doorknob began to turn. Finally, Tom rose, hovering above his crumpled, lifeless body as the girls entered the house. "Girls, watch out for the top step," he chuckled. "It's a real killer." After delivering his witty gem, he stopped resisting and relaxed as he was pulled into the light. The fine line between an actor and a liar. This was one of the few days each year when Andy was at work. Casually, he sprinkled water onto the landing of the mall's high staircase. He limbered himself up and began his theatrical breathing exercises. Acting hadn't worked out for Andy. He'd been a high school thespian and pursued theater well into college until his parents' money ran out. His training and talents hadn't gone to waste, and Andy found a livelihood far more lucrative and with better hours than that of a struggling actor. Andy was a slip and fall artist, a professional victim. He had learned to turn his theater skills towards convincing juries of imagined injuries. It took a while to build himself up at first. Andy bought pocketed bones into the restaurant just to get a free meal. But it didn't take too long to rack up an impressive Rolodex of ambulance-chasing lawyers and script-forging doctors. Andy's first big score came when he noticed an ice cream parlor with a steeper than average stairway from the parking lot. An average con man might have pulled a simple slip and fall and sue, but Andy was classically trained. A costume cane and a forged doctor's note added to the effect that Andy came tumbling down those concrete steps. The brilliant stroke was his lawyers, who had realized that Andy could sue the owner of the shop not just for personal injury, but also for not being ADA compliant. That had been years ago, and Andy was still receiving his monthly settlement checks. Afterward, lawsuits, especially class action, became Andy's bread and butter. He'd purposefully driven his Toyota into a street lamp, blaming the incident on a faulty accelerator. The jury was told that Andy would never walk again. But after the settlement came through, Andy had miraculously recovered. Andy had sustained life-threatening injuries from diet supplements, exercise equipment, and erectile dysfunction pills. He'd fallen down more stairs and been hit by more cars than anyone else in the city. Andy took one last glance down the mall stairs, making sure there was a clear path and plenty of witnesses below. He began walking briskly towards the wet tile. He brought his feet up and made sure to twist his face into a mask of fear and surprise, tucking into an impact-absorbing shape. Andy tumbled more or less harmlessly down the flight of stairs onto the floor below. He kept his face contorted in pain and glanced around to gauge the public's reaction. A man was already running up to Andy's landing site. "Somebody get help," the man called as he knelt down next to Andy's prone form. Andy looked up to the Good Samaritan and experienced an instant rush of recognition. A worried face from behind an ice cream counter, a distraught figure on the witness stand, a signature on settlement checks. Andy tried to speak, but the man clamped his hand down over Andy's mouth with surprising strength. The man's other hand twisted Andy's head in an unnatural direction. The snapping of bone and Andy's screams were muffled by the man shouting, "Somebody call 911. I think his neck is broken." Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. She brought her lamb to school one day. The kids let out loud jeers. The children took her lamb away, and Mary choked on tears. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was red with blood. She took its little body home and swore she'd hurt them good. Mary knew that lamb's blood called things ancient, hidden, deep. As Mary painted signs of old, never did she weep. Mary had a little lamb. It made her something scary. Now I dare you, look in the mirror and whisper, "Bloody Mary." I never saw her naked. "I don't get naked in front of anyone," Sadie told me. "Ever." It was an odd thing to say on a first date. Sure, we had already discussed our jobs, families, and movies we liked, but this seemed to come out of nowhere. I thought she was joking. "You mean you're a never nude?" I asked with a grin. "No," she said, chuckling. "But I wanted to tell you up front, in case it's a deal breaker." I shrugged. Very few things are deal breakers when you've only just met someone, especially an attractive someone. Besides, whatever her quirk, Sadie was also smart, sexy, and sweet. I already knew I wanted to see her again, so I did, many times. We dated, moved in together, and eventually got married. A perfectly normal relationship, except that Sadie really hadn't been joking about her quirk. In all the time, not once did I see her completely naked. She seemed fine with nudity while dressing or bathing, but only behind locked doors. She refused to explain, so her phobia mystified me. Almost anyone would have agreed that she was beautiful, and she claimed to have no embarrassing tattoos or traumatic stories of abuse. When we made love, my hands roamed everywhere beneath her clothes, but I couldn't feel any scars. In the end, I gave up asking about it and just accepted her as she was. Then she got pregnant. If you've never had a lover suddenly turn cold on you, I don't recommend it. This is the real horror story of the bitch who got pregnant. Over 9 long months, Sadie's sweetness disappeared, as if everything had been an act. When her water broke and we went to the hospital, she even banished me from the delivery room. I suppose that was a good thing, because when the baby came, I heard screams, not the wails of a newborn, but the frenzied shrieks of adults. By the time more hospital staff rushed in, Sadie's doctors and nurses were dead, having torn out their own eyes before slitting their throats or bashing their skulls against the floor, and at the center of it was Sadie, unconcerned by her bloody surroundings as she cradled our child in a sheet. Nobody else understood. Nobody else grasped what I grasped. Those people had seen my son, my newborn, naked son. In the days that followed, I felt even more unwelcome in my own home. Sadie would sit in a rocking chair holding our strangely quiet baby, and both of them would stare right through me. Then, not long ago, Sadie died in a fiery car accident. It was almost a relief, I'll admit. But being a single parent isn't easy. Alone with my son now, his silence stares grow colder every day. I keep my eyes tightly shut whenever I bathe or change him. Of course, whatever he really is, I can only assume that it would drive me mad to see it. But it's almost as maddening not to know. And this is the hallmark of a good story, is leaving certain shit to the imagination. This is the first one that gets a Kyle thumbs up. Fertility treatments. They told me when I was pretty young that I'd never be able to have a baby, and that was that. No therapy, no consolation, no nothing. I was given the knowledge and left to my own devices to deal with it. They wouldn't have to see me crying at night, every night for years and years. I kept it all under wraps, despite hating myself inside, hating my failure, hating my parents, or hating my parts that didn't work, hating the jealousy I felt, for the women who had the gift and squandered it. I needed to try something, anything. It didn't take long before I was ordering fertility drugs online. Clomiphene, GnRH, dithyllebestrol, dithylbestrol. Yeah. I took them all. Then I had to get sperm. That wasn't too difficult to obtain. A quick ad on Craigslist, a couple pictures sent back and forth, and a meetup. An hour later, I'd have a condom full of what I needed. I gave the drugs a week to kick in before doing everything else. They made me dizzy and nauseous. Small price to pay, I guess, for the next part. I had to inject the sperm into myself. I had to try lots of spots. I was aiming for where I thought ovaries would be. I figured an ectopic pregnancy was still a pregnancy, and maybe the doctors could fix it if I was lucky enough to encounter the problem in the first place. The needles were long enough and fat, and the contents were cold from the refrigerator. In that week, I've been with 30 men. My body ached, and my self-esteem was gone. They'd given me what I required. I injected myself with all of it over the course of a day. My belly was a hole-filled, leaky wreck by the time I was done, and the medication had me dizzier than I'd ever been. It's even hard to type this out through the brain fog, but it's all going to be worth it when this works. When this works, I'm going to have a beautiful baby of my own, one who will be loved, one who won't be told he can't follow his dreams just because he's a boy. We all know this story. You go downstairs to hear your mom calling you. She calls your name. She's in the kitchen, but then you turn and see your mom hiding in the cupboard under the stairs. "Don't go in the kitchen," she says. I heard it too. It's a silly tale. But imagine what happens next. You have to make a choice. You, a young kid, have to decide. You remember looking at the mom under the stairs. You remember her face even now, shaking with fear, her eyes wide with terror. "Come here," she shouts quickly. But then you see the mother in the kitchen. She's looking at you with a curious expression. At you, but not you. But she's tall, commanding, as if she would protect you. So you run to her. You're only 4. What else could you do? She hesitates a little, then returns your embrace. And with that, the other mom disappears. Forever. You've made your choice. You grow up having made your choice. But sometimes you wonder. Your mom looks at you, sometimes, with a strange expression, as if she doesn't know you. You only grow more distant as you reach adulthood. One day you leave to go to college, she looks at you again curiously. Distantly, she hugs you, but only for a second before she releases you. And for the first time in your life, you allow yourself to wonder, did you really make the right choice? Did you choose the right mom? And then for the first time, you look properly into her eyes. you see for the first time that she is thinking. She's thinking the same thing. Did she choose the wrong child? Grandfather Tim. Grandpa Tim was a bit of a recluse, as my family liked to say. He lived out in the middle of nowhere, in an old dilapidated house. But when he came around, everyone listened. No one argues or disobeys his commands, as strange as they are. For example, the time Tim convinced my Aunt Betty to purchase a life insurance policy on my Uncle Bill. Betty argued, but gave in to Grandpa, who insisted on paying for the policy. 2 years later, Uncle Bill passed away from a sudden heart attack. Aunt Betty received a huge payout that helped Uncle Bill's wife with the funeral costs. Sometimes his advice would be to get checked at the doctor, even if you weren't sick, and they would find a life-threatening tumor inside of you. Other times it would be to stay home from work on a certain day, and then you'd see a 20-car pileup on the highway in the news. Grandpa Tim always knew exactly when to call. When Tim died, I inherited all his possessions, including his house. The lawyer instructed me to check his mailbox for a letter Tim left me. I found myself opening the door in the basement and then almost fainting when I saw the endless cavern of hourglasses as far as the eye could see. The closest hourglass to the door had the names of my family members etched on their bases. That's when I saw the sand in my parents' hourglasses about to run out. I called them and told them to not get on the plane headed to Tim's funeral. The sand in their hourglasses refilled. I appreciate the subtlety here, because this is a story entitled Grandfather Tim, but it could easily be Father Time. A little bit of restraint. Don't see a lot of restraint in these stories. Simple thrills. The fortune teller was never wrong. If you had the money and the guts, she could show you the last moments right before you died. I knew people who had been to her and told of what they had seen. I've seen her predictions come true on several occasions. It didn't take too long, though, before I decided to see her myself. I'm naturally curious. The vision she showed me was stunning. As I gazed into her crystal ball, the world faded, and I was walking down the back road nearest my house. In the dark, the crickets chirped in the shadows. The crisp, cold air nipped at my base, or my nose. And then, darkness. I didn't see how I died. The fortune teller said, we didn't always see our deaths. Sometimes just the moments before. The ball, she said, showed us only what we needed to see. That vision changed my life. It's easy to take risks when you know they aren't risky. The back road I'm supposed to die on? it's not the only way to get to my house. All I had to do is avoid it. I didn't have to worry about a thing. I could go bungee jumping or skydiving or swim with sharks without worrying of lasting harm. I was able-bodied in my vision, so I knew nothing bad could happen to me, and the thrills were wonderful. But of course, thrills quickly stop becoming thrills when you take away the danger. Don't get me wrong. I still love the extreme sports and risky adventures. I ran with the bulls last month. I had a blast. But lately I've taken a different type of thrill. Once a month after the sun goes down, I put on my coat and I take a walk right down the road. Yeah, that road. As I walk down that road, hear the crickets chirp, feel the cold wind blowing through my hair, I find myself undergoing a transformation. The solid, fearless foundation I have in the face of cliffs and sharks and charging bulls starts to fracture and crumble with every step I take. As I approach the spot where the fortune teller's vision goes black, I feel my chest tighten. The hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. The sound of the crickets give way to the thrum of blood. As the heart frantically pumps, I shudder and then close my eyes, waiting, wondering if this is the moment I die. I continue to walk, eyes open or eyes closed, and braced for icy sting of a blade or fangs of some unknown beast. Fear floods my mind, and when I can take it no longer, I open my eyes again, never knowing what I'll see. The end of my street or the grinning visage of death. And for that glorious moment in time, I feel truly alive. You get what you pay for.
Yeah, you like this, baby?
She whispers, as she pulls her thin t-shirt over her head, arching her back to keep her breasts well in view of the webcam perched atop her monitor. Light slants in through the closed curtains in her room. It's a messy room, a college girl's room, run down and half bare. She's probably needing the money. I just need to watch. Yeah. I coo back in my dark room, fumbling with the zipper on my pants. Diana's my favorite. Look at her cute flat stomach. Still with the belly ring she probably got in high school, so young. Her small white breasts almost a glow in the light coming from her wide open window. Wait. Wide open? When did... My mouth drops as a man dressed in black swings a fist into Diana's face, sending her sprawling with a cry. She hits the ground with a thump so hard I almost feel it. Wait. Did I feel that? The man picks her up before I can blink and swings her into a wall face first. Dark drops hit her keyboard. But that's not what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the picture frame that just jumped off the wall of my apartment. The wall that I share with a neighbor I've never met. The man is ripping her clothes off, and I hear her crying from my webcam and through the wall. The man is ripping her clothes off. I hear her crying from the webcam and through the wall. Every thump as the man drags her to the bed reaches my ears twice. Oh God, Diana's my neighbor. She lives right next door. And I can save her from this, from being raped, from being murdered. Or I can watch. Life in Utopia. Our small town could be considered a utopia. The location is great, right next to the beach. There is no poverty, no racism, and crime is non-existent, with the exception of some robberies that have happened. Finding a job is really easy as long as you're willing to work hard and acquire some skills. You will get a promotion. I became my department's head in the local bank in only a year. Services like the police, the fire department, and hospitals are excellent, but taxes aren't very high. People are generally friendly and trustworthy. Nobody is religious, so it's pretty easy to form romantic relationships, and everyone was very welcoming when we first moved here. People are strange, though. Sometimes their actions will completely be out of the blue. You might get verbally abused by a good friend, or get hit on by a happily married old lady. Though I kinda get used to that stuff. Lately though, some even weirder shit has happened. A woman who was an experienced cook died in a house fire after leaving the hobs on for hours. The weirdest thing was that she had thrown away her fire alarm. I swear she had one. I saw it when I visited her about a month ago. Meanwhile, some people have drowned in their pools. Young, healthy, sober people drowning in their fucking pools? My family just started acting strangely. My wife quit her job as a police officer and now just paints all day long. I bet her quitting has something to do with all this weird shit that's happening, but she hasn't told me anything. In fact, she hasn't talked to me at all in the past 3 days. Today has been the scariest day of my life. I woke up really early and I had no control of my actions. I was feeling trapped inside my body. I didn't go to work and instead spent 4 hours on the treadmill. Even though I was really hungry and really tired, I only regained my body's control a few minutes ago, and after talking to my wife after days, I was unable to describe my experience. She was also unfazed by my abnormal behavior this morning. The creepiest thing, though, was the fucking green diamond hovering over my head. Oh, god damn it. It's a fucking Sims reference. This is ridiculous. How did somebody get away with this out here? Son of a bitch. Look, I promised I'd read the 30 top ones, and this is one of the 30. So, you know, what can I say? A message from your personal demons. Hello, my dear. You do not know who I am, but I know you. I am one of the 3 demons that were assigned to you at birth. You see, some people in this world are destined for greatness, destined to live happy, fulfilling lives. You, I'm afraid, are not one of those people, and it's our job to make sure of that. Who are we? Oh yes, of course, how rude of me. Allow me to introduce us. Shame is my younger brother, the demon on your left shoulder. Shame tells you that you're a freak, that those thoughts you have are not normal, that you'll never fit in. Shame whispered in your ear when your mother found you playing with yourself as a child. Shame is the one who makes you hate yourself. Fear sits on your right shoulder. He is the older brother, as old as life itself. Fear fills your every dark corner with monsters, turns every stranger on a dark street into a murderer. Fear stops you from telling your crush how you feel. He tells you it's better not to try than to let people see you fail. Fear makes you build your own prison. Who am I? Well, I'm the worst of all the demons. But you see me as a friend. You turn to me when you have nothing else, because I live in your heart. I'm the one who forces you to endure, the one who prolongs your torment. Sincerely, Hope. Mama's little goat. I left home in a hurry to pick up my son from school. Traffic was flowing pretty well that day. Nothing on my way but a few red lights. It was while I was waiting at a red light that I noticed the woman. I have no idea how long she had been standing there, staring at me, but once I noticed her, I just could not look away. She was smiling like a maniac and waving at me with one hand while stroking a little boy's hair with the other. The little boy, her son I assume, was wearing baggy brown clothes and a black goat mask. Now, that was a very weird costume. Plus, who wears a costume the day after Halloween? He was also waving and staring at me through that unsettling mask, but his waving felt uncomfortable and forced. The woman's eyes, they could see right through me, and I could almost physically feel her stare fixating on me. She wouldn't even blink. I felt naked and extremely unnerved. Now the boy's eyes, God. The boy's eyes were pleading, begging for help. The woman started to grow impatient, waving harder each passing second. I looked away. For some reason I was terrified. I had to get out of there. Once the green light was on, after what felt like forever, I took off. Didn't even dare to look back. I thought nothing could be more terrifying than the extremely unsettling feeling I had felt under the stare of that woman and her son. But then I got to school, and they told me my son wasn't there. They told me my wife had already picked him up, but I don't have a wife. They handed me a note saying she had asked them to give it to me. There are no words to describe what I felt when I read the note. Don't say I didn't give you a chance to say goodbye. Oh, damn. Stuck at work. It's 7:31 p.m. and I'm the last person in the office. But instead of leaving, I'm standing in front of the elevator with a box of paper clips in my hand. "Ready to go?" asks Ray. He's keeping the elevator door open for me. Behind him are Megan, Carla, and Marcos, all of whom look tired from working so late. The first time this happened, I opened my mouth to say yes, then I suddenly changed my answer, as I remembered my resolution to lose a few pounds. Back then I said thanks, but I'll take the stairs. This time, I don't say anything. "Suit yourself," Ray says anyway, as if I had spoken. He releases the door, but before it can close, I toss in the box. It lands on its corner, and the lid pops open, scattering its contents like a paperclip grenade. The door slides shut, and I'm alone again. No one in the elevator thought that this was weird. In fact, they didn't even notice. I'd done this little experiment many times, so I'm not surprised they didn't react. I'm also not surprised to look over to see the box of paperclips back on my desk, as if I'd never touched it. My other experiments end the same way. I've blocked the doors, I've shouted and begged, I've grabbed at Ray's arm, but nothing makes any lasting difference. My coworkers never respond, and everything resets. I always end up alone in the office, at least until the elevator reappears and Ray asks if I'm ready to go. I've gotten tired of experimenting, but there isn't much else to do around here. The phone and radios and fire alarms don't work, all the computers are frozen. I found a cheap romance novel hidden in Megan's bottom drawer, but I know how it ends. I ought to. I've only read it 30 times. Even if I actually do take the stairwell, it's like walking into an MC Escher print. However many times I descend or ascend, every door brings me right back here to the 40th floor. Of course, I could always join my coworkers in the elevator. I remember once when I was a kid, I was feeling morbidly curious, so I looked up elevator accidents and found out that they were incredibly rare. Elevators are probably the safest method of transport in the world, since they basically cannot just go crashing to the ground. You're about 1,000 times more likely to die on the staircase. But even though I know that, I also know this. Each time the elevator leaves, if I put my ear to the door, I can hear the receding screams of my coworkers, echoing back up the shaft. And that's why it's always 7:31 p.m., because I'm supposed to be with them, looking up from the paperclip box. I see the elevator has returned. "Ready to go?" asks Ray. Eventually, I know I'll say yes. Resting time. It started with the dodo birds, when we heard they had been rediscovered on the island of Mauritius. My wife and I laughed along with everyone else. It sounded crazy, right? A species that human had famously helped send to extinction over 300 years ago, reappearing out of the blue? On a modern and well-mapped island crawling with tourists, and not just a few birds hiding in some tiny corner of the park, but thousands of them all over the place. For a global news story, it was a nice change of pace from the usual disasters and wars. It made some people smile, especially the citizens of Mauritius, who quickly made fortunes by exporting eggs to anyone who wanted a taste of extinction. But soon enough, we all got a taste. when news about the dodos was overshadowed by other mysterious incidents. Woolly mammoths appeared in China. A massive herd of bison flattened a small town in Kansas. Whole sections of the Grand Canyon were suddenly only as deep as a stream. The pace quickened, and strange events began to occur faster than anyone could keep up with them. Amelia Earhart turned up safe and sound in Mexico. The ocean near the Yucatan Peninsula started to boil. A panic-inducing terrorist attack in Nevada was traced back to a failed atomic bomb test in 1951, which apparently hadn't failed, only been postponed. Elsewhere, everyone heard their breath when a UFO landed. Certain that the spacecraft would hold some answers, but it only contained two very confused Indian astronauts who claimed to have launched from 2041. While all of this was happening, scientists were in high demand on television. "We can't explain the phenomenon yet," one of them admitted. "I doubt we'll ever be able to, but to put it simply, time itself appears to be decaying. It's breaking down. Time is rusting." We had to call it something, so for whatever reason, the term for it stuck. Rusting. And the rust kept expanding. It's everywhere now. Not that now means anything anymore, of course, but while there are still big events like glaciers in Europe and vanishing pyramids, more and more often there are also tiny personal spots of time that flake unexpectedly. One of those rust spots happened to my wife. Shelley was pregnant. Then, without warning, the fetus was suddenly middle-aged. And as you can imagine, having two adult bodies in one place meant neither one survived. After that, I didn't care very much about anything. I figured that if time was going to go mad, then I would too. I even laughed, just like I laughed at the dodos when the doctors diagnosed my own little rust spot. Oh, I don't have it so bad, not really. In fact, it's nice to know I was meant to last so long. But sometimes, having a 100-year-old heart feels like a cold comfort when the rest of you is only 30. Blech. My second death. The first time I died, I didn't realize what had happened. I saw my wife's shocked face at my limped body. I felt her hand shake me. I heard her cries of disbelief as I didn't answer. I saw the paramedics shake their heads. Dread filled me. On my way to the morgue, terror replaced it. As scalpels were brought out to begin an autopsy, I felt pain I had never known as they opened me and took out my vital organs. Yet still I was aware. When nothing unnatural was found about my death, my burial began. I felt my body being placed in an open hole and a tree placed over me. I had always been a bit of a nature nut and thought that feeding a tree with my remains would be a way to complete the circle of life. I felt the agonizing stages of decomposition, but over time, I began to notice other sensations: warm sunlight, cool rain, the swaying of limbs. Eventually it dawned on me. As the tree fed on the nutrients of my body, my soul was flowing into it. But none of these sensations compared to what came next: the feel of mines. I had chosen to be buried in the forest that had been planted with people like me. Others who had allowed trees to grow with nutrients of their bodies. Now I knew how rightly I had chosen. Something had drawn us into the trees, and somehow we could communicate. The youngest still used language to talk. The oldest had surpassed that need. Why use the barriers of words to describe the love of family or warmth of the sun when you could send the feelings directly to another? It was a serenity I had never experienced. Years later, we heard news from a young one. He told us of war. Our country had invaded another, a flood of young ones followed, all telling the same tale. The war wasn't going so well. Our forest was growing, and it filled us with unease. Then we heard cries of pain and agony from one on our edge. The forest was supposed to be off limits in respect for the dead. But more supplies were needed. The wood was needed to feed the machines of war. Helpless, we waited as friends and grandchildren cut into us. The young ones were first. Still using the words to curse and cry out in pain, olders came next, projecting the bite of metal and bark. Finally, as the oldest fell, they sent the very sensation of death through us. I could not see, but I could feel the rumble of the earth as their machines worked towards me. I could not hear, but I could feel the vibrations of their saws as they came closer. I could not scream, but I could feel the bite of their blades as I died my second death. Thank you for being here. That was 30. I'd like to do more of these creepy reads, but I genuinely don't know where to look up source material. These were the top 30 posts from Short Scary Stories, the subreddit, and it would appear as though I've been reading for the greater half of an hour and 40 minutes. You can feel my voice failing a bit. Pretty insane. So I hope you enjoyed it. Understand I'd do this a hell of a lot more if I had more material, but I really don't, so I don't know. I'll try to find more interesting things. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And I hope you know that I'm here for you. Now, here's to hoping that this saved properly. You know what I'm talking about? I'd fucking lose it if it didn't. I actually kind of picked around on the way down from 30. There were 30 in total, but I didn't read all of them. Short Scary Stories got some bullshit going on half the time, if you know what I mean. Why are there 5 posts here? Whatever. What's like the top thing that's been posted here recently? Dispatch. Nah, fuck that. Looking at the chat. Let me get that on screen. Oh boy. White Wolfos, I know, right? They go so fast. Candy Stripes, please send this man good reads. Jordan Brown is a man. Now I gotta sleep with a bum leg without Kyle. White Wolfo says thanks. No problem. Melissa Cummings says, damn, I just got here. Thank you. Well, you have the whole, recording to go back to. Lexeus says, great reading as always, Kyle. I appreciate that from you, Lexeus. I'd really like to know what you'd like to hear so that I could deliver something up your alley. Melissa Cummings says, please post another song. You mean like a cover of a song, or do you mean like me writing a silly little rap? I can assume from the fact that you said song and not rap that you probably want me to do another cover. I don't really know. Some of the times when I post a cover, it's because like in the middle of the night I just feel like singing some dumb song. Or actually, Melissa, you were the one who liked a cover on my SoundCloud from years ago, and my email made me aware that it was still linked to that SoundCloud account. So I listened to that and I was like, this sounds whack, so I should just sing it again. There's that. Candy says, you're wonderful. Thank you again. So are you, Straps. So are you. Oh, BT Dragon says, thank you for streaming this. No problem. Oh boy. BT says, I love your creepy readings. I mean, I'd love to do more, but I really can't find anything that's, I don't want to say noteworthy, Oh God, my Rick and Morty. I didn't finish that episode. Okay. You didn't see that, right? Nobody saw that, right? Everything's fine. Nobody saw anything. It's the end of the world. What's going on Reddit? No, that's Ask Reddit. You're not a serial killer. You're just a serial inconveniencer. Oh, for the love of God. WrestleMania spoilers. White House ends bar associated role in vetting. What is all this shit, man? Can't make heads or tails of anything going on in the world right now. I just feel like an old man shaking my fist at what happened to Pokemon, Everything made more sense when it was just Pokemon. Jeez. What a weird thing to say. Guys, I love you to death. I would keep this stream going if I died. I don't know. Should I call Stripes? I could call Stripes and play that creepy game that I was playing earlier. Oh, man. Jordan Brown says, LOL, Kyle, finish it. Finish what? Stripes, are you serious? The girl that I read a petty revenge thing for did art for you a long time ago? And she says, what a small world. That's insane. I read a narration for a story for a woman today trying to crawl my way up the the petty revenge fucking ladder. A lot of my shit gets deleted. That's the hilarious part. What the monkey balls? Ask Reddit. What the fuck? Ooh, I got downvoted. Want to know what I got downvoted for? Oh my god. Okay, you're gonna hate this. No, I don't need to put that in the video. People already think I'm crazy. Guys, I love you, and I will see you soon. Thank you for being here. I'll definitely stream tomorrow, even if it's not something creepy. I love you, and I'll catch you guys soon. Have a great night.